Force veteran Master Sergeant Mark Evans launched Pizzas for Patriots, an amazing organization that sends a slice of home to our troops serving overseas.
And Master Sergeant Evans became a great friend of this show, but sadly he passed away unexpectedly in September. Here are some moments from his visits to Fox and Friends that we will never forget.
This morning we look at what's called Pizza for Patriots.
This is such an amazing thing that you do. Master Sergeant Mark Evans.
How did it start? How does it happen? How you implement this program?
It started at my dinner table 2 years ago on the 4th of July. My son said we were eating Chicago deep dish pizza, and he said, could we ship some there? Do they have it there? And I said, no, they don't have it there, but we could do that.
Why do you do this?
Because it's a slice of home for our troops. You know, they need to know we're here. I met a troop the other day, actually, flying here, and he was in his uniform. I said, did you have the pizza on the 4th? He says, yeah, I had the pizza. And I said, I'm the guy. And he says, you're the guy? Thank you so much. It's just a sheer miracle that we can take care of the troops.
Well, it's been great to have you these many years. So, Sergeant,
thank you very much.
Happy birthday, America.
All right, Master Sergeant Mark Evans' son is continuing his dad's mission with Pizzas for Patriots. Kent Evans joins us now. Thank you for being here, Kent.
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I just want to thank everyone here at Fox News Network for always stepping up and helping facilitate the awareness that we need in order to make this organization thrive. So I really thank you guys.
We miss your dad, but we're glad that the legacy continues. It's very nice for you to be here as well.
Thank you.
It started back in 2008. And by the way, you look just like your dad.
Thank you.
Remind us a lot of him. He raised a great son, and you're continuing to keep this mission alive. So tell us what it is all about and how people can help.
Well, so we started this back in 2008. We've shipped roughly 176,000 pizzas over to Iraq and Afghanistan, Kuwait, other areas in the Middle East. We've been doing a little restructuring within the organization, so this 4th of July we are not shipping over the Middle East. We plan on shipping overseas for Super Bowl Sunday. Have the troops that they all have access to watching the big game. So eating a slice of pizza in the desert, watching the game with your brothers in arms, it's just
slice of home.
Nothing like that.
Do these service members get pizza over there generally? Is this something that's only comes from?
No, they don't. I mean, generally they're at their camp eating dust every day, all day for days, and
it means so much.
So we want to
absolutely.
I've been out there with those guys, and I've seen those guys get things from home. Unbelievable. Yeah,
Artichoke Pizza here in New York City provided these. We're going to share it with some of our folks out here.
How can people help? Where can they go?
So people can go to our website, sgtpizza.org, and donations really are the only thing that keep this thing running. It's the American people and the support of the American people that really keeps this going. And this 4th of July, we are doing hosting 40 parties within the nation at veterans facilities, PTSD clinics, and long-term care facilities. We've hosted 650 parties here in the United States at veterans facilities to men just getting back, and also our older veterans.
Thanks for keeping your father's memory alive. We're certainly not going to forget it.
Thank you. Take care of our friends.
I'm telling you, Pete Hegseth, you took the wrong weekend off. I'm just telling you that.
Meanwhile, we'll get you back.
It's an exclusive interview you don't want to miss. The President and Maria one-on-one. But before you see the interview, Maria's here live next.
So please donate at SGTP.
Calls to abolish ICE as protests erupt across the nation.
These folks are going to walk in the streets today to make that point. Look at ICE. What a group of incompetents.
You get rid of ICE, you're going to have a country that you're going to be afraid to walk out of your house.
President Trump said that he will be picking a Supreme Court nominee on July 9th. He has now narrowed his previous list of 25 potential nominees to just 5.
But I'm putting conservative people on. I'm very proud of Neil Gorsuch. He has been outstanding.
It is hot outside. Well, here with some dadgum delicious recipes. Ribs, wings, smoked mac and cheese. Now we can eat this. Now you can eat that. Go.
This is our senior producer's favorite song choice of the morning. Lauren Peacock. She's one of the very best on this show.
She's fantastic.
I just want to give a shout out to her. She does a great job, and we love her to death. And she should pick our music all the time. Good,
fantastic.
Good and we have
Who's this right here?
Who's better than Maria?
I mean,
name it.
Everybody's waiting to find out what you sat down and spoke to the president about. Us included. We've seen little snippets and bits, but it's everybody's mind. They're talking about it. It's on the tip of everybody's tongue.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, what an interview. We're all waiting to see that on your show coming up soon. You talked about a number of things, but of course, on everyone's mind is immigration, and the rhetoric is heating up, especially among Democrats. What used to be more left-leaning, abolishing ICE, has now become more mainstream. You asked the president directly about that, and here's what he had to say back to you, Maria.
Yeah. The 28-year-old socialist that just beat out Joe Crowley says abolish ICE, and get this, more Democrats are getting in line with that. Kirsten Gillibrand today saying we need to abolish ICE.
Well, I hope they keep thinking about it because they're going to get beaten so badly. Do you know, ICE, these are the guys that go in and take MS-13 and they take them out because they're much tougher than MS-13, like by a factor of 10. And these are the ones, you get rid of ICE, you're going to have a country that you're going to be afraid to walk out of your house. I love that issue if they're going to actually do that.
Maria, you can boil that answer down to 3 words. Bring it on.
Bring it on, exactly. I mean, this issue has become so crazed. The skeptics and the detractors of this president calling to abolish ICE. We all know that we want immigration enforcement. It's absolutely outrageous that you would actually take from what has taken place at the border to actually just completely abolish ICE. It's an indication of how far left the actual Democratic Party has gone. And then you can see that from the recent win in New York. They really has been hijacked by the extremes.
And then what the solutions are after that. If you want to get rid of it, then what? That is the big question.
And not only that, but the president just signed an executive order to make sure not to separate children from their families. So we know that that's
you don't hear
out
about that much, though.
You don't hear about that. All you're hearing about is abolish ICE by the left. And so I think this is also what he says important to remember going into the November elections, because if they do just continue resist, let's abolish law and order, I think voters are going to react negatively.
Remember when the president in recent months has taken on the FBI, and you had Democrats say, "Oh my God, he's beating up on FBI agents."
And law
he
enforcement.
said, "No, I'm protecting. I want to protect law enforcement and the folks who are doing their jobs." But the leadership, like James Comey, lost their way and became political. Flip it around now with ICE. You have Democratic leaders going after federal agents at ICE and calling them, yes, incompetent. Here's Dick Durbin.
Look at ICE. What a group of incompetents. At this point, they're focused more on toddlers than terrorists. They want to, instead of deporting felons, they want to deport families that are being persecuted by criminal gangs. Instead of focusing on stopping bad drugs from coming in and stopping dirty drug money from going out, they're focusing on separating kids from their families. It's time to put an end to this cruel and incompetent policy.
Maria, this is an agency created after 9/11 to go after terrorist illegal immigrants.
And these guys and gals work so hard in terms of protecting this country and enforcing immigration. Legal immigration. You know, you made such a good analogy to the FBI, because that's exactly right. Right now, you know what has taken place in the 2016 election. You saw the incredible bias. We know what happened. The American people are not stupid. And yet, they try to turn the president calling that out into him insulting all of the agents, which wasn't the case at all. So again, I think this is going to be an issue that comes up during the election. Voters will remember it. And unless the left starts respecting law and order, I think voters get upset. I think people want borders, and they want certainly enforcement of legal immigration. So
they want safety. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
What a week to sit down with the president. So much happened last week. Immigration was just part of it. Then you had the Supreme Court news. Anthony Kennedy announcing his retirement. And so now the big question is, who will they pick to replace him? You asked the president about that, and specifically on the issue of Roe versus Wade. And here's what he said.
Are you going to ask your nominees beforehand how they might vote on Roe versus Wade?
Well, that's a big one, and probably not. They're all saying, don't do that, you don't do that, you shouldn't do that. But I'm putting conservative people on. And I'm very proud of Neil Gorsuch. He has been outstanding. His opinions are, you know, is so well written, so brilliant. And I'm going to try and do something like that, but I don't think I'm going to be so specific.
Now, on the campaign trail, the president talked about Roe v. Wade, and we know that one of the reasons that this president was so popular with a big mass of people is because they believed he would make changes to the Supreme Court as well as federal judges. He's getting a lot of high marks on his picks for the Supreme Court, obviously Gorsuch, and these federal judges across the board. Yesterday, I asked him about what it would mean for the states. During the campaign trail, he said, look, maybe we leave it to the states. It's probably going to be left to the states. He really was very careful in terms of his wording on this. He recognizes that this is a lightning bolt issue, and he's just said it. He's not going to ask his nominees how they feel about Roe v. Wade. And so all of this hysteria when Kennedy first announced is, I think, a little overdone.
So Leonard Leo obviously advises the president. He's an outside advisor to Trump on judicial selections, and he was on Fox News Sunday, I think this morning, and here's what he said about the issue of Roe v. Wade.
The fact of the matter is that Roe v. Wade is a very major precedent in America, and for 36 years people have been talking about it being overturned. It was an issue with Sandra O'Connor, David Souter, Anthony Kennedy, all of whom people said would overturn Roe v. Wade. No president is particularly good at speculating about this thing, and nobody is. And so I don't think at the end of the day it's about Roe v. Wade. It's about having judges on the court who are going to interpret the Constitution the way it's written. And part of interpreting the Constitution is taking into account major precedents, and that's going to happen.
Yeah, but people are really going to make it about Roe v. Wade if they can.
Well, they're going to make anything they can about anything they want to make it about that they think is going to be a fiery issue for the public. But at the end of the day, all of this is about President Trump. And all of this is about the left's wants and desires to get him out. You saw Maxine Waters just yesterday basically say, impeach again. They are all about resist. And that's going to hurt them because look, I feel like most people that I know, most people that in the country, in America, are sort of hanging out in the middle.
Yeah.
You might lean to the right on some issues. You might lean to the left on other issues, but you're hanging out in the middle. And I think that's what this president has done. And that's why he has support on the right and on the left.
Critics can't keep up. He's moving this way.
Exactly. He did say that he's going to do this quickly. I mean, another question that I asked him in regard to that story was, are you going to be able to put your nominee in place before the midterm elections? Because, this is going to be one of the most consequential midterm elections that we've seen ever. And he said, yeah, we're going to do this quickly. You just said it, July 9th. I suspect he is going to get some Democratic votes because you have to wonder about Senator McCain, Flake, and Corker.
Yeah. So much going on that we've spent 7-8 minutes talking about the interview. We haven't gotten to your specialty, which is the economy.
That's right.
So let's finally do that, okay?
Yes,
because people are dying to know what you got about taxes. Let's talk about it on the other side. Here's what he said.
Are you looking for a phase 2 tax
plan? We're doing a phase 2. We'll be doing it probably in October, maybe a little sooner than that. And it'll be more of a middle class. One of the things we're thinking about is bringing the 21% down to 20. And then for the most part, the rest of it would go right to the middle class.
He told you he wants to get this done, phase 2, in October. Is that realistic? The economy's already doing well, as you know better than anyone. Or is this about Nancy Pelosi in the House has said it's crumbs, and she's just on record saying, I want to take away phase 1, and Chuck Schumer's likely to block anything in October right before the election? Or are they banking on the idea that with those moderate Democrats, like a Manchin, Schumer's going to have to let phase 2 go through?
Well, whatever happens, if you do this and have this conversation, bring up this conversation September, October, that's obviously very strategic right before the midterm election. So I don't know that they could actually get it done, a new phase 2 tax plan before November. But just having that conversation, the president says, look, we're going to try to get something on the books by October so that this conversation is alive. Bringing the corporate rate down from 21 to 20% would be a positive. The corporate rate coming down from 35% to 21% did unleash animal spirits. But even more significant out of this White House is the president's rollback in regulations. When President Obama was in place, the number of federal registry pages was up to 97,000. That is equivalent to 15 King James Bibles. Okay? And then he came in and he started rolling back regulations, eliminating the red tape. Jamie Dimon once said to me, this was about a year ago, CEO of JP Morgan Chase, he said, I wanted to make an investment in the bridge that connects Staten Island to New Jersey. He said, I wasn't going to get, they said, we can't do this until 13 years. 13 years it was going to take. Why would anyone invest in infrastructure if you're not going to get a return for 13 years? Rolling back that regulation was very critical. So I do think they're going to be having this conversation, talking about it, trying to move something forward in October. I don't know if there's action.
All right, so we just got some new sound in. Of course, you can see the full interview at 10 a.m. on
She's
Morning
been giving us
Future.
little pieces.
But there's another piece that we're getting where the president talks about OPEC and oil prices. And here's what he said.
And in terms of oil prices, you've talked about oil prices a lot. Do you think somebody's manipulating this market up above $70 now?
100% OPEC is, and they better stop it, because we're protecting those countries, many of those countries. OPEC is manipulating, and you know, they allowed less than we thought last week. They have to put out another 2 million barrels, in my opinion, because we don't want that happening. Don't forget, the one negative to the Iran deal is you're going to lose a lot of oil, and they got to make up for it. And who's their big enemy? Iran. Okay, you think of it, Iran's their big, so they're going to have to do it. And I have a very good relationship with the king and with the crown prince of Saudi Arabia and the others around, and they're going to have to put out more oil.
Yesterday.
Exactly.
The breaking news yesterday was Saudi Arabia.
Right after the president said that, Saudi Arabia comes out and says, in fact, they will be pumping out more oil.
They didn't say the exact number, though. The exact number was a little bit questionable. But yeah, immediately.
It was. We also got into Iran. We got into North Korea. A lot of domestic issues as well. So we had a great interview. I'm looking forward to it. In about 45 minutes, you'll see.
I am curious. Did you ask? I'm sure you did, about trade and concerns about how well the economy is doing and how people feel unsettled about if we do have a trade war between, you know, Canada and China, other places, what that might mean for the economy?
Absolutely, Abby. We talked a lot about trade. This is one of the most important issues right now in terms of economic growth and where things go. The president was very clear, and he was very clear when he first took office. 3 pillars to his economic strategy: lowering taxes, rolling back regulation, and changing trade deals. He is insisting on changing these trade deals to make it more fair, reciprocal trade. Somebody said to me, in order to make some scrambled eggs, sometimes you have to break some eggs. And that's the way it is. So we are going to have a period where there's a lot of uncertainty. What does this mean? He's in negotiation mode.
It's Sunday morning. Nobody breaks eggs better. I'm Maria Bartiromo.
Well, looking forward to that.
You can see the full interview, Sunday Morning Futures at 10 a.m. Don't want to miss it.
Thank you, Maria.
Great job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. Meanwhile, this weekend's nationwide immigration protests come more than a year after the Women's March dominated headlines. But whatever came of those marches, and will this movement see the same results? Tammy Bruce is here to weigh in. Is this really about anti-Trump marches, not about specific issues? We'll talk about it.
And do you know why we celebrate Independence Day? Sadly, not everyone does.
Why do we celebrate the 4th of July? What's the significance of 17?
Thought about blowing up the White House. I am a nasty woman.
Remember that? Well, more than a year it has been since that notorious Women's March in D.C. Liberal activists and celebrities taking on the streets once again, this time over immigration policies. But whatever became of the Women's March, and will the same thing happen here? Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce joins us now to react. We all remember those women's marches. We were here reporting on it as they were going on. What did come of those?
You know, at this point, apparently only an ad for the Republican Party, for the GOP. You know, you had Madonna calling for the bombing of the White House effectively. And there was no cohesive message, if you will. It was really just against Trump. And that's fine. Look, I come from the left. I like organizing. I think there's power in organizing, and that's great. But when we were doing it, and I think the case is still a situation here, where you're looking to gin up enthusiasm and to get emails and to raise money. So that's what you're seeing. And I think that obviously most Americans, when they elected Trump, it was about policy. It was about, it's enough about emotions and marches or riots and rage. This is about what are we going to do to get the future fixed, not just for Republicans, but for everyone. We've seen that now unfold for the American people. Lowest unemployment rate for women in history, for Hispanics, for blacks, the tax cuts, et cetera. This is what we see for the future of ourselves and for our family. And if the Democrats are going to move into that framework, it needs to be more than about rage and about generic marches or even marches on issues that, look, women's issues are important to everyone, right? But women's issues are everyone's issues. And the same with the border, the issue of families, what we do for national security. So even the current issues matter to all of us.
And be clear about solutions that you think can help move us forward.
That's right.
These protests, you're exactly right. It's what makes this country great. We're able to get out on the streets. We're able to talk and scream about things that we're passionate about. That is wonderful, and we should always support that. But I looked at the marches yesterday on immigration, and at the core of it, though, is this hatred, as you're saying, for President Trump, because a lot of what we are dealing with today and the challenges that we see, we saw under former President Barack Obama. Where was the anger then? Where were the protests at that point?
Well, that's what tells you the core of what is happening here. This is about, and I think there's a couple of poll numbers that tell you what maybe frightened the Democrat Party into feeling they needed to do this. In the last month, according to Mark Penn, a pollster but previously for President Clinton's administration, for Harvard-Harris, came out and showed in the last month that the support for the president by Hispanics rose 10 points. It rose amongst Democrats by 4 points. So they're looking for an issue that might generate enthusiasm for the midterm elections. But interestingly, when it comes to even this issue, the American people aren't being moved by this argument. The abolish ICE argument is an example. 69% of the American people are against that idea, and that includes 59% of the Democrats. So this is, I think, trying to find an issue that really all Americans actually agree with already, which is keeping families together. But it's more about being compassionate and securing the border, while the president's approval ratings have stayed steady in the midst of all of this as well.
It seems a real disconnect at times with what the celebrities are preaching out there in these protests and what many Americans actually feel in this country.
It's politics and not policy that they're moving, and that's not a winner.
It's an important point. Tammy, always good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Happy Sunday. All right, coming up on the show, Seattle police officers are leaving the force in big numbers, many of them frustrated over the city's politics. We're going to talk to one of those frustrated cops coming up next. Plus, who would do such a thing? Thieves draining the bank account of the oldest man in the U.S., a 112-year-old World War II veteran. We all know him from the short. He is a patriot. We're going to tell you how you can help this man coming up. For you, and we begin with extreme weather. Flash flooding wreaks havoc across the Midwest, killing a man in Iowa overnight. The rushing water sweeping away a 65-year-old when getting out of his stalled van. The storm's knocking out power to about 20,000 people. The severe thunderstorms are moving through Wisconsin, Illinois, and Michigan today. Also, this tension's boiling out of control as Antifa and right-wing activists clash during a conservative march in Portland. Anti-fascists pelting eggs, water bottles, and even firecrackers at the Patriot Prayers group. Police making several arrests and seizing knives, pepper spray, and clubs. The conservative group was marching in support of its founder, Joey Gibson, who is now running for U.S. Senate. Ed and Dean?
Thanks, Abby. Seattle police officers are fleeing the force right now, many of them reportedly frustrated with the city's politics.
Furthermore, some young patrol officers don't feel appreciated. And our next guest calls this a mass exodus that could affect safety.
Here with Insight, Vice President of the Seattle Police Officers Guild, Rich O'Neill. Good morning, Rich. We appreciate you coming in, and we appreciate your service.
Great. Thanks for having me.
How much of this is normal retirement, lack of retention, people rotating out of the force, and how much of this is a deep frustration that they're either being disrespected or they're just upset about the politics there in Seattle?
Well, you know, we've always had officers leave for retirement. That's normal. It's called normal attrition. But in my 38 years, I've never seen anything like what we're seeing right now, and that is young officers, you know, experienced officers, you know, 3 to 10 years on, they're kind of just hitting their stride, and they're leaving for other local agencies who are luring them away because they're fed up with the politics, with the conditions, and with the lack of support. And it's just a number of issues that are just weighing down on them, and as we talk to them, they just said we're fed up.
Yeah, they're not saying they're leaving law enforcement. They just don't want to do it there where they're not appreciated by their city council or other political members. Now they also haven't gotten a raise in 4 years, but the city council's given themselves a raise, and some of the other politicians have.
Absolutely. You know, the officers are working without a contract. Like you said, they haven't had a raise in over 4 years. And, you know, but the city of Seattle is booming. The economy is booming, you know, with all of the, we've had an explosion of population, and yet the number of officers on the street are pretty much the same as the 1970s, which is just alarming. But, you know, these officers see more and more money being thrown into social programs, and the conditions on the street are things that I haven't seen in my 38 years.
So the police department, it will not surprise you, we reach out to them and they say it's not a mass exodus, it's a normal attrition, as we spoke about a moment ago. You obviously disagree with that, but talk about the stakes you believe for people in a city like Seattle, and whether this could happen in other cities if local politicians are playing politics and officers start fleeing.
Well, you know, Seattle is a beautiful city, you know, the mountains and the water, and I've just seen it change, and I've never seen the conditions like they are on the streets. We have encampments, we have tents, we have open-air drug markets in many neighborhoods. Just recently, our firefighters have complained to city leaders that it's getting dangerous for them, that they go into some of these encampments and they're assaulted. And it's a shame what's happened.
Pardon me, are these encampments of homeless people? Or we've seen this in parts of California, San Francisco in particular, just disgusting conditions in the street.
Needles.
Yeah, so what's happening in these encampments so we understand the context?
Well, it's just like lawlessness. I mean, these are many people who, as our officers encounter them, they don't want shelter, they don't want help. You know, they want to live there where they can have their guns and their drugs and their needles and just not be bothered. But they are, you know, bothering a lot of citizens and even attacking some of our firefighters. And of course, our police officers have to go into these, like you say, disgusting conditions.
First responders shouldn't have to deal with that.
They shouldn't. Neither should the law enforcement have to deal with not being appreciated. When you're in trouble, you're going to call law enforcement. I just recently joined myself as a reserve police officer in Idaho. I support our men and women, and I know how important that morale is for them. So they're not being appreciated. They're sort of reacting with their feet, are they not?
Absolutely. You know, they're leaving, and it is very hard nowadays to find people who want to be police officers with all the anti-police rhetoric that's out there. And you know, the economy is very, very great. Unemployment is low, so it's difficult to find officers. And when you get a good candidate and they become a police officer, and you just, like I said, they're hitting their stride in years 3 to 10, and now they're leaving for other agencies, it just makes it unsafe, because less officers on the street make it unsafe for the public.
Richard O'Neill, we appreciate you standing up for the men and women in blue.
My pleasure.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
All right, in just days, the president will nominate his pick to replace Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. His first pick for the High Court was to replace the late Justice Antonin Scalia. Well, guess what? One of his sons, Christopher, is here to discuss the president's next nomination.
And we're taking barbecue to the next level with a smoker on the plaza. And dadgum. Dadgummit, look at that.
You have to finish the sentence. Just look at it.
I don't really know.
I forgot.
What is the significance of 1776? I don't know.
Not a history person.
I can tell.
Christopher Columbus. Civil War.
Close.
Or the end of it. Or the end of slavery.
Sun's out, guns out.
Dean's neighbors, Dean's friends there at Santa Monica in California.
Your buddies in Santa Monica.
Yeah, I mean, come on, guys. Read a book. Do something. I know it's beautiful out there and everybody's in shape. We saw that, but study a little bit of history.
How much time they spend working out and drinking those green juices. You could take a little bit of that and maybe read a history book.
I mean, 1776? Really? Really?
We've been asking you all morning, what do you think about this? Michael emails, this makes me cry. Can you believe Washington, D.C. actually wants to lower the voting age to 16? Good point.
This comes from Doug, says too many young people are ignorant about American history because it is not taught in schools.
Wow.
You know, I actually was looking at Twitter, and after they watched, we played it earlier on the show, they said, this actually makes me really upset and sad.
Sure.
This is something that's quite serious. This is the next generation of people that are going to take over the country. Because we kind of joke about it, and it's like,
but this is a serious answer that they're giving, and this is our history.
I was a history major. Yeah. It really hurts my feelings tremendously.
At Princeton.
At Princeton.
Pete's home.
Hello. But I was there a couple decades before.
You smarty
Pete.
pants.
I was much older than Pete.
Elitist.
Keep sending us your thoughts, though, on that, friends@foxnews.com. But I want to bring you some other headlines we are following this morning. Starting with this, the left calling to abolish ICE as massive protests erupt across the nation. One top Senate Democrat taking it one step further, Senator Dick Durbin insulting the agency as incompetent.
Look at ICE. What a group of incompetents. At this point, they're focused more on toddlers than terrorists.
Agent Jerry Robinette was in charge of ICE's Homeland Security investigations in San Antonio, and he joined us earlier on the show, and here's what he had to say.
minutes on the internet, he could get a mouthful of what ICE and HSI does. I mean, I think it's irresponsible considering that these agents place their lives. We've had agents that have lost their lives in the performance of their duties.
San Francisco, New York, and Chicago were among several major cities holding those rallies. Also this, a factory worker is accused of killing 21 co-workers by poisoning their food. German police believe that the 56-year-old man laced their lunch with poison over the last 18 years. Many of the victims dying of heart attacks and cancer, likely caused by the toxic substance. One employee has been in a coma now for 2 years. The suspected killer was finally caught after officials looked at security footage when another co-worker noticed the powdered substance on his food. Unbelievable story. And take a look at this. A tour boat explosion claims a life at sea in the Bahamas.
The boat! The boat! It's going to explode. Come on, Skip. We need to get away from this area.
The blast sending thick plumes of smoke pouring into the sky. The charter was carrying 12 people, including 10 Americans. 9 of them were injured. Early reports say that a boat engine caught fire, but this cause is still under investigation. And an identity theft targets the nation's oldest World War II veteran. 112-year-old Richard Overton's bank account was drained. Overton's Social Security and banking account numbers were used to buy savings bonds. The Texas family says a significant amount of money was then stolen. The bank is helping the veteran get it all back. Overton was at Pearl Harbor just after the Japanese attack. A GoFundMe for Overton has now raised more than $400,000. And of course, we have that information and the GoFundMe site on our Fox and Friends page. So please go help this wonderful patriot out. We appreciate it. All right, let's go outside to Ed for some more yummy barbecue.
All right, Abby,
Dadgummit.
That's right. We have been celebrating freedom, frankly, with some fireworks at the top of the show. And then eating. That's an American tradition. We have some dadgum delicious barbecue because of John McLemore all morning.
Yo, guys, happy 4th.
Come on.
So instead of standing over the grill and worrying about your recipes, we're going to show you how to do a great 4th of July rib recipe. This is our Masterbuilt digital electric smoker. So we're going to take all of the guesswork, everything out of the intimidation, and smoke your recipes super easy. So you guys ready?
Yeah, I had no idea smoking would look like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. See? We've been eating all morning with these folks back here.
These smokers have to be outside.
They have to be outside, absolutely. So we're going to take your favorite rub and put on your ribs. We've got the membrane pulled off. Yes, this is just a great sweet barbecue rub.
Remove the membrane.
Yeah, remove the membrane. Put that on your smoker. Always put your new food, raw food, on the bottom.
Oh.
Okay, we're going to set the Masterbuilt smoker to 225 degrees and smoke those ribs for 3 hours. We're then going to take
3
them
hours
off.
later, here you go.
3 hours later, we're going to take some butter, some brown sugar, and some honey, and we're going to put it in an aluminum foil. Okay, that's going to give you a little bit of sweet flavor to those ribs. We're going to wrap this completely up in aluminum foil.
Yes, we are.
And put it back on the smoker. We're then going to take that, smoke it for 1 more hour.
Is that 3 hours now?
3 hours, and then 1 hour wrapped, and that is super hot. Let's get rid of that right there. And we're going to show you how to take that rib.
I can confirm it's good.
Can you confirm it's good?
I can confirm it.
And you're going to see the results.
Ooh.
There you go. So when you want to smoke your favorite rib recipe, this smoker is exclusive at Sam's Club. And again, it's the Masterbuilt digital smoker. It allows you to smoke your recipe.
Can I just endorse it by saying this is empty?
That's
People out
empty.
here are eating it up.
Is it good?
Well done.
So
I love it.
we did smoked mac and cheese as well. So do your favorite rib recipe, and
Mac and
all
cheese
of the
you can smoke.
recipes. Woo, that's hot. All of these recipes
Smoking hot mac and cheese
are available on Masterbuilt.com, and that is worth the price of admission, folks. That is a cheesy mac and cheese little lava right there. So let Masterbuilt help you guys. Yeah, let Masterbuilt help you do your recipes. And tomorrow morning from 10 to 2 Eastern time, we're going to do a Masterbuilt Facebook Live, show folks how to do this recipe from start to finish.
Johnny Mac, thank you.
All right,
we're going to have the mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese rabbit.
My mouth is actually watering. Bring me in some of that. That looks unbelievable. Thank you, guys. All right, well, in just days, President Trump will nominate his pick to replace Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy. President Trump's first pick for the High Court was to replace late Justice Antonin Scalia. His son, Christopher, is here with what his father would want in the next justice. It's an interview you don't want to miss. Also, a proud American tradition, an inside look at a company that makes all of its American flags right here in the USA.
I'm going to hand it out. Let's go. Hey, where's that? Save one for a little girl back there. I need one left. One left. All right, here we go.
Time over your snacks. Airports across the country are reporting an increase of agents removing food items and placing them in a separate bin for screening. But TSA won't be taking this new snack hitting the market tomorrow, donut fries. Dunkin' Donuts rolling out the churro-like treats after quietly testing them in Boston earlier this year. They're selling 5 sweet fries for $2. Abby?
It actually sounds really good, but too much money for just 5 little fries.
So bad for you.
All right, well, President Trump set to name his Supreme Court nominee to replace Justice Anthony Kennedy on July 9th. This will be his second Supreme Court pick. The first, Neil Gorsuch, was named to replace the late Justice Antonin Scalia.
He served nearly 30 years, nominated by President Reagan in 1986, when his son Christopher was just 10 years old. Well, Christopher's all grown up. He went on to edit his father's book, Scalia Speaks, and he joins us live now. Good morning, Mr. Scalia.
Morning.
Good morning, and thank you for the compliment. It's nice to be called a grown-up.
Yeah, believe me.
We all pretend, right?
And we know you have a very large family, and everyone still misses Justice Scalia. We want you to know that this morning, but his legacy still burns bright, and we wonder what you're thinking about the president's pick.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. Well, for the president's pick, I'm confident that based on his court picks so far of the lower federal courts, as well as Justice Gorsuch, he's going to pick somebody who interprets laws and the Constitution as they were written, as they were understood at the time of their passage, rather than according to their own policy preferences. And I think that's a really important point that my father came back to again and again, including in his speeches, that judges aren't there to say what the law should be, but what the law actually is, as it was, as they were passed.
Yeah, this is obviously an emotional thing for any family to go through. You are one of the few that has experienced this with your own family. Walk us through, as the president's deciding his pick, and whoever that ends up being, what that family will experience in this process. It is a huge job, the most important job as a judge you can do in this country. Help people understand what that means for a family.
Well, it's chaotic, certainly. As you said, I was only 10 years old when it happened. So I think I didn't really know what was going on. I just knew that Dad was on the TV all of a sudden, and there were a lot of cameras outside my house all of a sudden waiting for him to come home. But, you know, it was a whirlwind. It was exciting, but I didn't really understand what it meant until I was a little bit older. But, you know, for whichever family goes through this, it's, you know, I would just recommend that they be prepared to, you know, smile when the cameras are on them, and be prepared to, you know, hear some nasty things said about your mother or your father that usually are not going to be true.
Well, your dad was sworn in 97-0.
Right.
I'm not sure that would be the case today. Yeah, different time.
98-0. Don't sell them short. But yeah,
98.
And this is something that I don't think would happen today, and he knew that very well. And my dad used to explain that confirmation hearings have gotten so much more intense now because the public, unfortunately, expects different things from judges than they really should. Judges aren't supposed to, as I said earlier, determine what the best law is. That wasn't their role. Alexander Hamilton in the Federalist Papers warned that if once the judiciary becomes blended with the other branches, liberty is threatened. And so that's why we see confirmation battles being so heated now, because the role of judges has been confused a little bit.
Liberty is a word that certainly sums up what your father fought his whole career for. And on behalf of all the American people, very nice to talk to you on the eve of the 4th of July, because like I said at the top, his legacy burns bright. And I was right. I said he's all grown up, and you just proved that.
It's true.
You did a great job, and we appreciate having you on.
Thank you guys very much.
Christopher, thank you so much. All right, coming up next, a proud American tradition ahead, of course, of Independence Day.
And we sent Todd out to get an inside look at a flag company right here in the open.
President Trump making national pride a focal point even hosting a Made in America showcase at the White House.
Well, one of the businesses featured at the White House was Virginia's National Capital Flag Company, which proudly makes the American flag and has done that for over 50 years.
And our own Todd Pyro got a behind-the-scenes look at how a flag is made. What a great thing to go check out.
So intricate, so amazing, guys. The National Capital Flag Company makes flags of every size, shape, and color, but most importantly, they are all made right here in America. We're here at the National Capital Flag Company to find out how to make a flag. It's not just Old Glory that you make here. You make a lot of flags for a lot of different organizations.
What we do here, we embroider and applique flags for anybody, actually.
What was it like to get that call from President Trump that your company, National Capital Flag Company, is one of the 50 companies recognized as a Made in America company?
I was honored. I got the call, basically said, we'd like to have you come in and represent Virginia in the Made in America. When the president came by, he looked at our flags and shook his hand and said, nice job.
We're here at the National Capital Flag Company, joined by Elizabeth. Elizabeth, simple question. How do you make a flag?
Well, for our embroidered flags, it starts off in our art department, and the design goes over to the machine.
So it's not all machines. There's a key part of the process that requires good old American workers.
Once they come off the machine, it's just the first step. And then she's going to come up here and keep trimming along the blue as well.
Flags are one of those things that you see flying all the time, but I don't think anybody stopped to think about what it takes to make it. It's a pretty complicated process.
It is, and we're very good at it. It looks so simple, though, when you see it. All you are is just impressed by it. I think if you don't know about the process, it's all these little bits of effort, you know, going on all along the process that's contributing to the final finished product.
So chances are, if somebody watching TV at home, if they've watched a little bit of history, they've probably seen one of your flags.
The other day when President Trump had the King of Jordan in, those Jordan flags behind him, we made those. During the North Korean summit, we made some of the flags that were there.
What does Made in America mean to you?
Made in America to me means jobs for myself and the other 17 employees here, and also the pride that we know we've done it with our own hands.
Why is it so important for the average American just sitting at home to try at all costs to buy American?
It's the symbol of our country, and they want to make sure it's made in America. And that goes for, I drive an American car. Close. As much as you can, it's important.
We've seen the American flag at so many proud American moments. Last couple weeks, there's a lot of divisiveness in our country right now. You make flags. Do you see the flag sort of rising above all that and being the symbol that we can all unite behind once again?
I do. I mean, when people come in here, we don't ask their political leanings. We don't even talk politics. We just talk about the flag. The flag itself rises above all of that.
Couldn't say that better myself. What's interesting about the owner, Al, there, he was a firefighter and worked part-time at this flag company, but over the course of time, ended up becoming full-time there, buying it, taking it over. So he really went from one aspect of being a real patriot as a firefighter to now being a patriot making flags.
And nice American story, you know what I mean? He rose up.
It's amazing. And they made Fox and Friends a special surprise that you are going to announce on the show on the 4th of July on Wednesday.
There's the video of us picking all the colors and shapes and all that good stuff. We're going to bring it here. We will have it on set on Wednesday. Can't wait.
What a great piece, Todd. Thank you for bringing that to us.
And Todd, thanks for giving me a picture signed of Todd.
Did you really? Dean Cain is now a member of the Pyromaniacs. Dean, would you like to read the inscription?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I am a Superman.
Superman.
For becoming a pyromaniac.
All right. There you go.
I can't believe it.
More Fox and Friends.
Pyromaniacs. Back after this.
You guys can't do that at me.